Cosmic here. Welcome to the channel and happy release day for the Demon Slayer starter deck. Now, if you're someone who's just looking to dip your toes into Union Arena with this set and have two starter decks and need a list, or if you're someone who is ready to really take that starter deck to the next level with main set cards, then this is the video for you. So for each one of these lists, we're going to talk about the key cards, kind of the key strategy that these decks want to rely on, and give you two deck lists to go off of, again, for both the beginner and the main set masterpiece, as I'll call it, so you can reference and dive right in. So without further ado, let's get into it. So yes, up first, we are going to talk about the key cards for the starter deck and what to look out for. So of course, up first, we have the 4 energy Tanjiro. And of course, a lot of people are going to know that this is all about the Tanjiro and Nezuko deck, both in the starter deck and the main set and how they work with one another. But what's really important about this one, on top of just being the 4K and it gains impact for the turn, really helping you close out the game, it also gives you a 500 BP boost until the next turn, which is really important because it's going to help you survive and get those extra blocks in that your opponent is going to have to deal with, or you're just going to save yourself a point of damage. So it's really important that it also gets that 500 boost because it's just such a great defensive opportunity for you to really take back the game. So this is one that is definitely a little bit stronger for giving you kind of a 2-point life swing when you think about it that way. So it is something that is going to see a lot of play with the main set as well. Spoiler, all these cards are going to. Up next, we have the Zero Energy Nezuko. And I know you're looking at this card that it's just, why are we talking about a common, right? Why a little 1500, right? It's not, doesn't look that menacing by itself, but both in the starter deck and the main set, we have different ways to really power up this BP. And you'll notice that if you have Tanjiro, it's going to gain 1K for your turn. So it's going to go to a 2500. And that alone is pretty strong. That's something I definitely want to stress here early on. Going against 2 and even some 3 energy-based cards, 2500 BP is good enough for a point of damage. And then you're also going to notice in this particular list and in the next list with the binder cards that we got, there's multiple ways to push this up to 3500, which then means you're clearing most 3 energy cards. And in some very niche cases, some 4 energies as well. But it just becomes a very surprising threat with this deck. And it's, again, something you have to look at. Okay, you know, it's a 1500 to start, and then suddenly it's a 3500. She's going to be coming for your life, all right? This is a scary card once it gets going. And then huge shout out to the Zenitsu at the very end, which is going to be something that allows us to filter for the key cards that we're looking for, being if we're missing the Tanjiro or if we're missing the Nezuko. This card is just straight gas for all versions of this deck. It even has a draw trigger on top of it just for more value, right? One of the key issues with yellow time and time again is consistency. So this is a big consistency boost all in one card for you. And also it's a 2500 at 2, which means it's a okay BP threshold point where we can probably get an attack in with this just as well. So with that, let's talk about the list overall and kind of what we're looking at, right? So in the starter deck itself, something to note is that you are a little bit limited in terms of how much you can really get the Tanjiro and Nezuko kind of package going. You are missing some key pieces that really bring this combo together within the main set. But other than that, it is still a very solid deck that allows you to have a fun top end and some BP manipulation stuff that you can look forward to using by giving your opponent some really awkward blocks, it turns out. So for those that might have played the Hunter x Hunter set, you might remember Wing and just giving that 1K BP by resting it is pretty important. So here we have the same exact card in the Sakonoji being able to rest himself and give any card plus 1000. That's another way to bump up the Nezuko. So again, 1500 goes up to 2500 if you have Tanjiro on the board, and then goes up to 3500 if you're also using the effect. But then keep in mind, we also do play 2 different 3K bodies. They're the active trigger, which is really, really important for us to have some kind of defensive triggers in the starter deck. So being able to pump both of these to 4K is also going to be really important. So in this one in particular, we are just trying to find more ways to get 4K BP attackers to help close out the game that way. We have some double energy to get us to make sure that we're getting up to the 5 for the Ginyu here, which also has impact. The other thing you'll note is that we do have 2 different cards here which have the 2 action point requirement, which can be a little bit expensive, right, depending on the turns that you want to be playing. But it does give you extra removal. They both have get triggers, which makes sure that we're going to be able to get them. We have the ability to, interact with our opponent's board. So there's a lot of value that we have here that we can get, being 4Ks and be able to boost Nezuko to the 4K as well, right? They are still going to be attacking for good thresholds, but at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to Tanjiro getting that impact, getting your early damage where you can, and just relying on some good, powerful 4K swings, thanks to the backline booster, the energy line booster that we're ultimately going to have. So overall, compared to just the starter decks as they are, right? This is something that I put a little bit more, in the middle, all things considered. We do have a little bit more consistency thanks to the 2 energies in Zetsu. That's going to be able to give us the when played. We have some nice step as well to make sure that we're always getting our energy online. Again, the 8 active triggers is nice. And then, of course, just being able to make sure that we have a top end that can attack and apply some pressure rounds it out to be fairly okay, right? A lot of these decks have all been focused around generally getting an impact related character and then some type of removal type character as the other SR slot. But then sometimes they didn't always have like a BP boost. So it'd just be like, hey, who got their 4K? But now in this case, you do have the ability to get some pumps and get some battlefield manipulation happening to where you can then streamline some attacks and get a little bit more value that way. So the starter deck's pretty straightforward. I think it's definitely going to be a good spot to, jam 2 of them together, just have a little bit of fun with it. But overall, there's probably a couple things that I'd still need to change. Again, starter deck format isn't something that we traditionally test out a lot because a lot of people just dive in with the main sets, all things considered. But still, I think if you're someone who is just collecting the starter decks for Union Arena, I think you will be pretty happy with this one overall. Now going into the main set and kind of the real MVPs and, what brought Demon Slayer kind of up to a very high tier 2. And this is definitely where I want to add the other caveat. I know coming off the back of Code Geass, a lot of people saw how much insane power level was all packed into Code Geass. It was truly one of the best sets printed in Union Arena for like the first year and a half of the Japan format, just in terms of the overall number of viable decks you could play like out of the gate. But if you are someone who loves Demon Slayer, or if you're someone who really didn't get enough out of like the Megumi deck in JJK, then look, play Demon Slayer. It's actually a lot of fun, and I think it just gets a bad rep because of when it's coming out, and a lot of people just have this negative connotation. They're like, oh, it's not tier 1 or tier 0. I don't care about it, right? Like, there's some good stuff in here. Like, yellow is actually, this might be one of our probably the best yellow deck that we're going to have, at least for right now. And then in volume 2, the purple deck is crazy good. So like there's some Demon Slayer stuff that's definitely worth checking out. And then there's some, again, same thing like C2 Pizza deck. There's some really fun decks in Demon Slayer as well that are certainly less competitive, but the flavor, you love to see it. Like the flavor they were able to bake into the set was just such a nice home run. Like that's why I like Union Arena at the end of the day. They are very true to these characters. So with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the main set key cards you're going to be looking forward to. And this is how you'll see all these decks really come together and the true strategy of this deck kind of come online. So the Tanjiro, or the Revival Tanjiro, as I just always call him, he does have impact just always, which is really nice. Again, that's really important for closing out games. But his when played is the really important part of this card because it's going to grab you basically any Nezuko that you want to get and then also be able to play a card off of it as well. So it's something that helps you get that combo enabler on board. And then also if they removed it early enough, right, it lets you get that piece back. So this goes again to the fact of like, let's talk about consistency. Let's talk about key pieces that can help close out the game and bring other combo pieces online. And this again does have a lot of the same Megumi energy that was allowed to, search up the stage cards, right, and get that filtering going. But this one, you're getting the impact right away. You're getting the extra body on the board. It just does a lot more. And that's why I think this is just a very nice upgrade from that deck. If you like that play style, that I think people who, were excited for JJK found a deck that they liked and wished we had a little bit more with it, which it does get buffed in volume 2. But that's a later topic, right? I think Demon Slayer Yellow is going to be an absolutely perfect fit for you. So Tanjiro, again, just there, consistency piece, love to see it. But for me, the real all-star and the real fun of this, on top of, thank goodness we got the binder cards, which I'll talk about right after this, but is the 3 energy Nezuko that is the raid. During your turn, it's going to get plus 500 BP, so it is going to be a 4K as long as you have Tanjiro on the board. Spoiler, you're always going to have him on the board in this deck. But then when attacking, you may choose 1 Tanjiro Kamado on your front line and 1 other character in your energy line and swap them. So, right, this allows you then to set up turns where you get to swing with your impact or just swing with a different one to apply pressure, right? then attack with the Nezuko, swap them out, get another attack in, and if you have multiple of these, right, you just get to keep going and keep this chain going where you're getting 6 or 7 attacks sometimes by lining this up all together. And then what's really important, as we're going to see with some of those other cards, is that they are a little bit limited in their BP threshold, or like we talked about with the starter deck cards, you know, we have some of this like main turn, like rested, give 1,000 BP, but instead we got not only a way to enable what's moving to the front line whenever we kind of need it to, we got a stacking ability, and it also is a double energy for some reason. Like the 3 energy Tanjiro to just bring this all together is insane, and I'm so glad that we got this with Volume 1 as well, because this card streamlines the deck, really gives you the additional pressure that you needed, and I just, again, cannot stress enough what a key piece this is of the glue that holds this whole deck together for getting those BP thresholds. The only possible downside I could, mention here is that we don't have a trigger on it, right? But like, sure, that's a balancing thing. It'd be way too good if it had a trigger on it as well. But again, it is something that helps you get those extra BP thresholds, because again, you're going to see a lot of 3Ks or 2500s that then go up to 3500, which just get an extra attack in. And if you have multiple of these, they are going to trigger once per turn per card. So this gets really crazy, and because it's a double energy, you can have 2 of these on your energy line and then just have your entire deck unlocked from that point on if you really wanted to, while also getting an insane boost. So again, if you're someone who loves putting together these combos and getting to attack multiple times and have this really big payoff, with also having some key consistency stuff that we haven't seen in other decks that have this kind of combo lead in, right? With the Tanjiro giving us the key pieces out of our sideline, with the Zenitsu that we saw early on with the 2 energy and letting us search the top cards of our deck for more cards. We have a lot of draw triggers as well, which can help. There's a lot going on for this deck, and something that I thoroughly am excited to play testing a little bit more, because spoiler, this was, again, once it got a little bit later into the sets for me for following the Japan format, that I didn't really get to test this, so I'm really excited to play this for the first time. And that's where I'm also going to add the caveat here for the main set deck list. Again, this is something that I haven't had too much time with, or to any availability really, to test, but all my deck lists that I try to put out on the channel are going to be very heavily focused on 4-ofs or 2-ofs, so that you, the players, can at least dive in, get a sense of how you want to play the deck, get a feel for it, and then of course make the adjustments beyond there. I will say, of the cards that we have, when you talk about the ones that either manipulate the board by moving cards, or if you're able to get a BP boost for something that is going to move, then obviously those need to stay in, and then feel free to, choose the others as it were beyond that. Now, I know a lot of people were probably going to say that I was going to give the Revival Tanjiro kind of the spotlight here, but no, I have to give it to Nezuko again, because when you get this multi-attack synergy going and you get multiple on the battlefield, you're going to see how scary she can be very, very quickly for what she enables, and it becomes a silver bullet that your opponent wants to get rid of. And again, we can just keep bringing it back, thankfully. So it's really like we have 8 copies of this card in the deck, thanks to the other raid that we're going to be playing. Now, the other thing that I will say here from a overall deck construction standpoint, this is where I got to, I think it was like 40 cards in the deck, and I was like, I guess I have to put in something else, right, to kind of round it out. Like, I wish we had a different raid target or a top end that we could rely on. So we are putting the color trigger in this list. It is a removal or conditional removal. It is a color trigger, and you can't play the other color trigger. It doesn't have the same synergy with the deck. So that just kind of felt like a shoe in there. And then from there, it really comes down to, which of the 3K, the 2 energy cost line you really want to lean into. Both of these have their own benefits, right? So the Tanjiro has Step, which can help set up your energy line when you really need it to. It's a 3K body, which easily becomes a 4K with the 3 energy Tanjiro that can boost something. The Nezuko also gives you more BP manipulation, and you can also play it off Tanjiro's effect to get that extra swing in. So this is another one of those decks where you're really just going to have to, play it out and see where it goes. And then also on top of that, in terms of just thinking about Nezuko combos, The one drop where at the start of your attack phase, choose one of your characters in your front line, you can swap it with this character. So you also have another mover enabler by playing the 1 energy version and then playing off Tanjiro's effect to then get a additional attack in. So kind of like that pseudo haste without losing your energy, which is really, really important, right? So again, think about when you're promoting from the energy line, then you have to like refill it on the next turn. This allows you just to get a clean swap. You get to trigger your 3 energy Tanjiro to give whatever's coming to the front line plus 1,000 BP, which, spoiler, is probably going to be one of the 3Ks that you played on the previous turn. And then you're also still getting your energy. You're not losing anything by it going to the back line, right? So it's just one of those things that this is definitely a deck. You got to see all the pieces really come together and how that's all going to line up. But it's a really fun one to get some of the other, things going. Some of the other, like, flex spots that kind of, are just here to be here. A Zero that has a draw trigger, because, again, just the extra draw triggers are really nice. Again, we have 12 draw triggers, which is kind of unheard of when it comes to like, a yellow deck in general. Again, we're just thinking about like from the consistency standpoint, it's really nice to get those extra draw effects. We only have 4 active. That's the other part where like I wish I would have had a little bit more of the active triggers, but space gets very limited. Again, if you want to cut something, cut the 4-2 Tanjiro. I will not be upset at all because, again, these cards are really hard to play unless you have the final trigger to extend your turn with them. So it's definitely... Look, the color trigger I always like to include because it gives you a feel of what the color wants to be doing, or kind of like the other effect of it. But it's definitely one where I think this deck in particular really can benefit from extra active triggers, especially if you are going to be going into, right, if you drop this one off, you can go into more of the starter deck Tanjiro to get the extra plus 500 BP, which then also really gives you the opportunity to get an extra block in. So again, the immediate, like, I wanted to include it because I always focus on like the more starter focused ones. You can cut this Tanjiro, put 2 more of the starter deck one in, get the more defensive triggers, and then bump up the active trigger count here as well in terms of how I would personally recommend moving that around for another option. But if you haven't played Union Arena at all and you want to learn about the color triggers, then definitely keep that one in there as well. Other than that, you can really see how these all come together and just to be one combo, multi-attack, super fun deck to play that can really reward you for understanding what the various play lines are going to be. And you can really surprise your opponent by the different BP manipulation that you can line up, or field manipulation if you want to even tech in some of the event cards that let you rest some stuff, right? There's a few other things that you could do, but if you want to see more deck lists, you'll have to wait until our video next week where I break down every single archetype in Demon Slayer. So with that, happy release day again for the starter deck. We are 1 week away from the full main set launch. But again, if you're new to Union Arena, definitely use this 1 week to call around, check out the Bandai TCG Plus app, figure out where people are playing, and get ready to dive in and play this very fun game. Again, I still really enjoy, now that we're 5 sets in for the game itself, it's always just really exciting to see how these different titles come to life in a really fun way in a card game. That even if I'm not the biggest fan of some of the other IPs that they have coming up, I really like to see, go back, watch the anime or watch some clips of it and say, okay, how does this character come to life and get his special powers in the card game? And so far, in my opinion at least, because I've actually went and watched all these except Bleach, I think they're doing a pretty great job. So I've always been a fan of where this is going. And if you are someone that's new and joining us in Union Arena for the first time, definitely let me know in the comments below. And let me know what deck you're looking forward to the most in Demon Slayer, with the main set launching just 1 week away. So with that, my friends, as always, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.